All those headlines and more. I'm joined now by media writer for The Australian, Sophie Ellsworth. And out of Darwin tonight, Deputy Executive Director for the Institute of Public Affairs, Daniel Wild. Well, welcome to you both. Dan, I want to start with you. This confidential 10-page document that's been found inside a secure area at Melbourne's Royal Children's Hospital. It's a $7 million wish list of medicines and medical equipment. A lot of the demands are written in Arabic, that this list be provided to the Palestinian Ministry of Health. Now, the Executive Council of Australian Jewry says the very existence of this document raises serious questions, given it was found in a location not accessible to the public. What do you make of this?
Well, Peter, we've just had the Easter period and the Good Friday appeal in Victoria, where, as usual, Victorians dug deep and gave over $20 million in donations to the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne. And they would expect that money and the services of the hospital are going towards sick children who are in need, rather than the hospital, or at least a component of the hospital, engaging in some kind of political actions. In the reporting that I read on this, Peter, what concerned me the most was references to rival factions within the hospital. And I can't for the life of me understand, why does a hospital in Australia have rival factions within it when it should have one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to help sick people, and in this case, sick children who are in need. And I think, and I'm concerned, that it's just another example of how a once trusted and revered institution risks going down the same path of becoming politicised rather than focusing on its core mission.
It is a real worry because Melburnians take the Royal Children's Hospital to their heart. Victorians do. Huge amount of money is raised, and that wish list turns up just after a multi-million-dollar appeal, which we have on Good Friday. Let's go to the politics inside Labor, because this Palestinian call for statehood by Penny Wong is causing a lot of division. Now, there are party power brokers who fear they've got to pander to Muslim populations, particularly in Western Sydney. They're worried about high-profile independents. But not all within Labor are happy. Have a listen.
To say that, the Palestinian Authority is ready for recognition as a state at this point in time is ludicrous.
Now, that's a strong denial of the Wong position. This is, of course, Mike Kelly, former frontbencher inside Labor. And he makes a point too. If Australia goes down this path unilaterally, Sophie, it puts it at odds with a lot of our senior allies, like the UK, like the US.
Well, it does, Peter, and you outlined that in your column in The Australian today. This is really concerning that she's taken such a strong stance, particularly after what we saw, with those people, volunteers over working there, distributing aid and so forth. This is really concerning. And as Alexander Downer just pointed out on Chris Kenny's program, it's particularly concerning given the timing of what has just happened. So this is causing, I think, the government a lot of problems, because she's come out extremely strong on this, and it is at odds with a lot of our allies.
It's also about the Green vote, isn't it, Dan? Because Labor's shifting to the left. They're worried about the Green vote rather than shift to the centre and get back that hawk sort of audience that they used to have, indeed the audience that Kevin Rudd won with so handsomely in 2007. They're trying to out-green the Greens. And this is, I think, a real worry for our country and foreign policy, of course. There's also talk of Muslim-badged candidates, these websites we heard about earlier in the week, that are really trying to target MPs to push a Arab-Muslim point of view politically.
That's right, Peter. I mean, there's a lot of concerning aspects to this, as you pointed out in the monologue. And reported today, you've got over a third of voters in certain seats like Blaxland who are Muslim or have a Muslim background, and that number's 20 or 25% in a number of Labor seats. And look, to me, this gets to a bigger issue, which is the massive failure of our migration program over many years. I'm encouraged by the fact that our nation is finally having debate over the size of the program, and I know that Claire O'Neill has said that they're going to halve the size of the program as this government. Now, I'm not holding my breath, but I'm happy to see that there's a debate about that. But there's also what's happening to our values. And it is clear that for a number of years, there is a significant and growing minority of those who are coming to our country who simply do not share mainstream Australian values. There are enclaves within certain communities who do not share Australian values, and we have had a failure of political leadership to encourage those not to have a multiculturalism, identity politics, separatism approach, which is what has happened, but to have an integration approach where, yes, you can hold on to your home culture and practice your religion, but Australia should not be the dumping ground for the world's problems. And unfortunately, we're seeing too much religious and sectarian conflict coming to our country, and this is becoming an urgent problem.
Well, I think it was 15 years ago now, my old boss Tony Abbott said, come to Australia, sure, we welcome you, we love migrants, we're a migrant nation, but join Team Australia when you're here. The left hated it, but this is all being brought out right now. Let's go to the housing stats, because this is also relevant to migration. ABS Statistics, Bureau of Statistics information out says Australia will fall 90,000 homes short this year of the national target of 240,000 new homes. A new house starts for 2023. Well, they've come in at the lowest in 11 years. We've got spikes in construction costs. I went through that sweetheart deal in Queensland, a 20% loading now on anything built by taxpayers up there. We've got all these businesses going bust, Sophie, in the construction sector. And we've got these union deals. I mean, they are crazy demands. How on earth can housing be brought to market under these conditions?
Well, to be frank, Peter, it's pretty tough. I did hear the Prime Minister speaking on radio in Brisbane today about this, basically saying he's supportive of construction. It sounds all very good, but it's problematic when these costs keep soaring, and it shows how powerful the unions are. I mean, I was reading on certain public holidays, they get 300%, bonus on top of their income. I mean, that's a huge incentive to work on those days. And when the costs keep soaring, they also have to spread out these costs. So it takes longer to build in some cases because they have to be able to afford it. So this impacts also how many new homes we're getting. So it's really it will have such a big impact and be so widespread.
Daniel Wilding, and of course, the government says we're winding back, record migration. We've got the message. They have used it to avoid a technical recession. I mean, it's been a very deliberate strategy by the government. People are in pain at a per capita level, but it's all covered and papered over the cracks since they were elected. But how on earth can you be behind in a target as they are? So Australians are not getting the homes they need, but still, despite the rhetoric, despite saying they're sliding back on these migration numbers, still absolutely ramping in record levels of migration.
Well, that's right. There's no plan. There never has been a plan for how to accommodate the large intake of migrants. And of course, Australia has always been a welcoming and tolerant nation, and migrants have been key to our national success, but it's got to be planned for. And we've had a migration-only led economic policy strategy that is failing Australians on the ground. Our analysis shows that last year, 80% of our total economic growth was from population growth. Now, compare that to the 1990s, the heyday of economic reform, when just 1/3 of our economic growth came from population growth, with the remainder coming from productivity growth, where Australians got wealthier and better off. As we know, over the last 4 quarters, per capita growth has gone backwards. It's the first time that has happened since the early 1980s, when we were in the middle of a global economic recession. So we all know that migration makes the pie bigger, but the share that Australians get is getting smaller, and it's only going to get worse until we have a proper plan and strategy from this government.
And a proper community debate. Daniel Wilding, thank you, Sophie. As always, great to have your company.